It was a Monday morning in late September when the light first felt different. Sharper, cooler, like fall had finally crept into the edges of the Blue Ridge Mountains. I was standing by the kitchen window, pouring hot water into a chipped French press, watching mist roll over the hills like breath. There was something calming about the silence before the day began. The world hadn't yet asked anything of me. My name is Charlotte Hayes, but most people call me Charlie. I'm 34, a barista at a little cafe just off Pack Square in Asheville, North Carolina, and I'm also a single mom. My daughter Mia is 10 years old, smart, quiet, and way too observant for her age. She's the kind of kid who notices when a plant looks thirsty or when someone's smile doesn't quite reach their eyes. And she sees me more than I'd sometimes like. Our mornings are a dance. I pack her lunch while she reads out loud from whatever nature book she's devouring. That day, it was something about salamander migration patterns, her voice rising with excitement as she talked about amphibians crossing mountain streams under the moonlight. I smiled and nodded, stirring oatmeal on the stove, even though I was also calculating how much gas I had left in the car and whether my tips from the weekend would stretch to Friday. It's a constant juggle. Money, time, patience. I work early shifts at the cafe and take online graphic design courses at night. I'm trying to build something better for both of us, piece by piece. I want Mia to see that dreams don't disappear just because life gets messy. But the truth? Some days I feel like I'm building a house during a windstorm. One wrong move and everything might collapse. I lost Mia's dad, Lucas, 5 years ago in a fire. He was a volunteer firefighter. Just a call on a stormy night, a house with an old propane tank, a misstep and he was gone. He never even saw Mia lose her first tooth. I still remember how my body ached when I heard the news, how I dropped to my knees and sobbed into the carpet because I didn't know how to explain death to a 5-year-old, much less survive it myself. Since then it's been just me and Mia. My mother Gwen didn't make things easier. She's a big-name PR executive back in Raleigh, perfect suits, perfect house, perfect life. Growing up she held me to impossible standards. My younger brother Daniel was the golden boy valedictorian, Ivy League, the whole package. I was the creative one, which she translated as directionless. When I moved to Asheville it wasn't just about cheaper rent or escaping the city noise. I needed distance. Emotional oxygen. Gwen always offered help with invisible strings, each favor a debt, each check a chain. That morning, Mia looked up from her laptop with a hopeful grin. Mom, guess what? I submitted my frog video to the Kids Nature Scholarship Contest. I raised an eyebrow. The one with the tadpoles in your sock drawer? She giggled. No. This one's serious. I added music and everything. I knelt next to her, kissed her forehead. I'm proud of you, Bug. She gave me that look, half joy, half hesitation. Do you think Grandma Gwen would like it? And there was that quiet, painful twist in my stomach. Gwen, for all her achievements, never really saw Mia either. She once said Mia should stop living in her imagination and focus on real accomplishments. As if discovering the life cycle of frogs wasn't real enough. I tried to keep my tone light. I think your video's amazing. What Grandma thinks doesn't change that. The truth was, Mia still wanted her approval. Part of me did too. That's the cruel thing about complicated mothers. You keep reaching back even when you know the fire will burn. After breakfast we packed up her backpack. I drove her to school, her sneakers thumping nervously on the passenger side floor mat. I kissed her on the cheek, watched her walk through the school gate with her usual bounce. Then I sat there in the car for a minute, forehead resting on the steering wheel. Just breathing. I'd received a message the night before from Gwen. A brief, clipped email. Charlotte, I assume you'll be coming to Daniel's engagement dinner. I expect Mia to wear something formal. There's a trust conversation we need to revisit. No, how are you? No, tell Mia I love her. Just expectations and the constant threat of financial leverage. I didn't reply. I didn't have the energy. The coffee shop was slow that day. I practiced my latte art, fiddled with sketches on my iPad during breaks. My manager, Kelsey, a kind soul with too many cats and zero patience for snobs, asked if I was okay. I told her I was fine. That's always my line. People don't really want the long answer. But the truth was, things were starting to fray. Mia's shoes were too tight. My car made that sound again. My student loan interest had kicked back in. And Gwen's shadow still loomed large, just out of sight but always close enough to chill the air. What I didn't know, sipping burnt espresso and sketching tree branches on my screen, was that within 24 hours, everything I thought I was barely holding together would break open. And I would be forced to choose, not just between comfort and courage, but between old loyalties and the fragile, beautiful life I was trying to build for Mia and me. It was the kind of morning that shouldn't have gone wrong. Clear skies, sun glinting off the porch railing, the smell of leftover maple syrup clinging to plates in the sink. I was still in my pajamas, sipping coffee, scrolling through job boards I couldn't apply to yet. Mia had left early, proud of her independence, pedaling her bike the mile and a half to school like she'd practiced all summer. I still remember the way she waved as she rode off, her helmet too big, slipping down over her forehead, her neon backpack bouncing. "Love you," she shouted. "Text me when you get there." I called back. She didn't, but that wasn't unusual. She got caught up with friends, or maybe with another idea for her amphibian documentary series. It was 9:52 a.m. when my phone rang. Not the ringtone I used for Gwen or spam calls, the school's ringtone. My stomach dropped, the way it always does when you see that number. Parents know. It's like your body recognizes danger before your mind does. "Ms. Hayes." The voice was tight, formal. "The guidance counselor, Mr. Riley. I'd met him once at a parent-teacher event. There's been an accident. Mia was hit by a car. We've called EMS. She's being taken to Asheville General." Everything inside me went still. Then cold. I barely remember grabbing my keys. I think I left the front door open. The next 20 minutes were a blur of red lights I didn't see, people honking at me, my hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel, my mind playing every worst-case scenario like a horror film on loop. The hospital parking lot felt enormous, the doors too far away, my legs too slow. At the front desk, I choked out her name, Mia Hayes. My daughter. They brought me to a waiting room with pale green walls and an overly cheerful mural of cartoon animals in a forest. A nurse came out, gentle but brisk. "She's stable. She's got a fractured pelvis, a mild concussion and some stitches in her left arm and forehead. She's lucky." Lucky. I hated that word in that moment. They let me see her. She was lying on a hospital bed, small and pale under 2 white sheets, an oxygen tube tucked under her nose, machines beeping steadily. Her eyes were closed, face swollen on one side, a fresh bandage across her brow. I wanted to collapse. Instead, I walked over, kissed her forehead and whispered, "I'm here, bug. I'm not going anywhere." I sat with her for hours, my fingers curled around hers. A nurse brought me juice. A social worker came in, asked if I had someone to call. And that's when I thought of Gwen. I didn't want to, but I did. I texted her the basics. No drama, no emotion. Just, Mia was hit by a car. She's stable. At Asheville General. She called immediately. "I'm getting in the car," she said, voice clipped. "I'll be there by evening. Have you called Daniel?" "I don't want Daniel here. He doesn't even know Mia." "That's not the point, Charlotte. Family steps up in a crisis." I almost laughed. Family? What Gwen meant was appearances. Duty. Show up for the photo, not the process. But I didn't argue. I was too tired. She arrived 5 hours later, wearing a tailored jacket and low heels, as if she were walking into a boardroom. She brought a bouquet of expensive white roses. I didn't tell her Mia was allergic to pollen. She stood beside the bed for a moment, then turned to me and said, "This is why you don't let children bike alone, Charlotte." My jaw clenched. It was a marked crossing. A distracted driver. He was texting. Gwen sighed. "There's always a reason. But Mia's 10. A child. You're the adult." I wanted to scream. Instead, I walked out into the hallway and cried silently, facing the vending machines. I hated how easily she still made me feel like a failure. I hated that I wanted her comfort and resented her at the same time. Later that night, while Mia slept, Gwen and I sat in the corner of the room. She pulled out her phone and scrolled through emails like we were in a waiting room at the dentist. Then casually she said, "Daniel's engagement dinner is next Saturday. I assume you'll come. It'll be good for you to be around people." I stared at her. Mia might still be in recovery. You can spare a few hours. And this would be a good moment to talk about her college fund again. I've been handling the account. But if you keep resisting advice, I'll need to reevaluate your access. My body went cold. "You're giving me an ultimatum?" "I'm giving you a choice," she said. "One day, Mia will ask why you didn't accept help when it was offered. I stood. She'll know exactly why. Because your help always comes with a price. That was the moment I knew. Gwen didn't care about Mia's healing, only about control. She hadn't changed. And I had to. I left the room that night with my hands shaking. I walked the long, silent hallway and cried in the stairwell. But beneath the tears, something shifted. For the first time, I was ready to set a boundary I should have set years ago. The fracture wasn't just in Mia's pelvis. It was in our family too. And something had finally snapped. The next morning, the hospital room smelled like hand sanitizer and plastic sheets. A quiet beeping from Mia's heart monitor was the only sound. I was still curled in the stiff chair beside her bed, my neck sore from sleeping in half-sitting, half-praying positions. Mia stirred. For the first time in 2 days, she opened her eyes. They fluttered open slowly, blinking against the light, and she let out a hoarse, soft groan. My heart stopped, then leapt. I was at her side in a second. "Hey, baby," I whispered, brushing her hair back from her bandaged forehead. "I'm here. You're okay. You're safe." Her eyes darted around, confused, and then landed on me. "It hurts," she said, her voice thin as paper. "I know, sweetie. But you're okay. You're safe now." He squeezed my hand, weak but real. I hadn't let myself cry all night. But now I did. Quiet tears slipped down my cheeks as I leaned forward and kissed her knuckles. A nurse entered a moment later and smiled. "That's a good sign. She's coming back to us." And just like that, everything that had been heavy and terrifying shifted into something else. Something harder to define but no less complicated. The long road to healing. The crisis wasn't over, but the emergency had passed. And that meant the hard work was only beginning. By afternoon, Gwen was back. Fresh blouse, perfect lipstick, tote bag filled with glossy magazines Mia wouldn't care about. She gave me a nod, not warm but not cold either, then turned to Mia and smiled like she was auditioning for a commercial. "Darling. There you are. You gave us such a scare." Mia blinked at her, then glanced over at me. "Grandma Gwen," she said faintly, and Gwen leaned in to kiss her cheek. "I brought you some puzzles and that nature magazine you love. We're all just so relieved." I waited. She didn't ask how Mia felt. She didn't ask what the doctors had said. Instead, she took out her phone, snapped a discreet photo of Mia sleeping, and said, "Daniel will be glad to know she's okay. He's got the rehearsal dinner this weekend." That was my breaking point. I stood up, walked to the other side of the bed, and looked Gwen directly in the eyes. "No photos, Gwen." She blinked. "It's just for family." "No photos," I repeated, firmer this time. "And no talk about parties. She's not even sitting up on her own yet." Gwen sighed, tucking her phone away. "You always do this. Take everything so personally." I crossed my arms. "Because it is personal. This is my daughter. My child who was hit by a car and spent 2 days unconscious. She's not your prop. She's not part of your curated image. You're being dramatic. And you're being manipulative." We stood in silence for a long time. The monitor beeped, the machine hummed. Mia was half asleep again, murmuring softly to herself. Gwen finally said, "I just don't want you to make this harder than it has to be." I didn't answer. I walked her to the hallway instead. "I need space," I said quietly, but with everything I had. "From you. From your control. You're not here to help Mia. You're here to manage me." Gwen laughed, but it was brittle. "That's ridiculous." "Is it?" I pulled out my phone. "You know what I realized yesterday? You've used Mia's college fund like a leash. Every time I say no to you, you threaten to pull it back. That ends now." She was quiet, her eyes narrowing. "Be careful, Charlotte." "No," I said, and my voice broke just a little. "You be careful. Because I'm done pretending that your version of love is good for me, or for her." I went back into the room. Closed the door. Sat by Mia's side again. My hands were trembling, but not from fear. From relief. Later that evening, Mia turned to me and whispered, "Did I make Grandma mad?" My heart cracked open again. "No, Bug," I said softly. "Sometimes people just have big feelings. And sometimes it's okay to tell someone they hurt us." She was quiet for a while. Then she said, "I like it when it's just us." And I knew exactly what she meant. For the next few days, I enforced strict boundaries. Gwen wasn't allowed to visit unsupervised. I told the nurses. I told the front desk. I meant it. Mia needed peace, not performance. Gwen didn't come back. She sent a bouquet of lilies with a card that read, "Still your mother." I threw them away before Mia saw them. I wasn't angry. Not really. I was just done giving someone the chance to rewrite my life under the guise of love. In the quiet that followed, something beautiful happened. Mia began to heal, not just physically but emotionally. Her eyes brightened. Her voice grew stronger. She started asking for crayons again, sketching frogs and salamanders on hospital notepads. And I began to feel something I hadn't in years. Clarity. This fracture between me and Gwen, it wasn't the end of our story. But it was the end of me letting her define it. And as I watched Mia trace a lily pad with careful fingers, I promised myself, no one gets to hold my child's future over her head. Not even her grandmother. Especially not her grandmother. From that moment forward, we were going to be okay. Not perfect. Not painless. But honest. And free. Spring came late that year. It arrived in pieces. An afternoon breeze warm enough to crack a window open, the smell of rain on pavement, a patch of daffodils blooming outside the rehab center where Mia had her physical therapy twice a week. Watching her relearn how to walk, wobbling slowly between parallel bars, jaw clenched in stubborn focus, I was struck by how brave she was without even realizing it. Her small hands gripped the bars like they were tree limbs over a rushing stream. She didn't cry. She didn't complain. She just kept moving. Some days I didn't know how to match that strength. It had been almost 4 months since the accident. 4 months since I told Gwen to stop trying to control us with her money and her expectations. True to form, she had gone silent. The college fund had been frozen, no explanations given. I half expected a lawsuit in the mail or a public spectacle. But instead she simply vanished from our day-to-day. There were no more emails. No more unexpected visits. Just silence. And oddly, I didn't miss her. But I grieved what never was, what I used to hope could be. A mother who saw me. Who loved without conditions. Who didn't turn every favor into a tally mark. I started picking up more freelance design jobs on the side. Menus for local cafes, branding for an Asheville yoga studio. It wasn't glamorous and the pay was modest, but it was mine. I was building something with my own hands, no strings attached. The manager at the cafe let me drop to part-time, understanding that Mia's recovery was my priority. We got by. Not easily. But we did. And we had moments. Real, beautiful moments. Like the day Mia laughed so hard at a frog-shaped cookie in a bakery window that she almost fell off her crutches. Or when we stayed up late watching old marine documentaries on Vice, the grainy voice of David Attenborough filling the apartment while Mia whispered facts like secrets. "Did you know octopuses have 3 hearts?" "Yes," I said. "But only one daughter like you." She blushed and looked away, but I caught the smile. We even had a small celebration when she took her first independent steps again. Just me, her, and a cupcake with a single sparkler on top. No guests. No pressure. Just the two of us, quietly amazed. It was during that time I started teaching her about boundaries. Not just in words but by example. We talked about people who love in safe ways and those who don't. About how love should never make you feel small or scared. She absorbed it like a sponge. And I realized slowly that I was raising a young girl who knew her worth better at 10 than I had at 30. Then, in May, something unexpected happened. Gwen showed up. She came to one of Mia's physical therapy appointments unannounced, standing awkwardly in the corner of the waiting room in a pale blue blouse, holding a small potted succulent. Her expression was unfamiliar, something between guilt and pride. She didn't say much at first. Just handed Mia the plant and said, "I thought you might like this. It's resilient. Like you." Mia looked at me unsure. I nodded gently. "Say thank you if you want." "Thank you," Mia said softly. There was a long pause. Gwen cleared her throat. I've been thinking about what you said. About control. And boundaries." I waited. "I don't know how to fix things," she admitted. "But I miss her. And even if I never said it right." It wasn't an apology, not really. But it was something. And maybe that's all people like Gwen know how to give. So I said, "You can visit. If Mia's okay with it. But on our terms. No more conditions. No more threats." Her mouth tightened like she wanted to argue. But then she nodded. "Okay." We didn't hug. But we didn't fight. And somehow that was enough. Over the next few weeks, Gwen came around carefully. Once a week for short visits. Always with something small. A book, a riddle, a plant. Never with advice. Mia was cautious at first, but she softened. She's a forgiving soul. Probably more than I am. By the time Mia's 11th birthday came in June, our lives had steadied. Gwen was invited, but only for the afternoon, and she respected the boundary. The real celebration happened that night. Just the two of us again out on the small balcony surrounded by paper lanterns and stars. Mia held the sea turtle necklace I'd given her and looked up at me. Do you think Grandma will ever really change? I paused, choosing my words. I think some people grow fast and some grow slow. But everyone can grow if they try. She nodded, quiet for a moment. Do you think you and her will be close again? I looked out at the stars. Maybe. But closeness isn't the same as safety. We can care for people from a distance if we need to. That's still love. She smiled. I'm glad it's just us tonight. I pulled her close, brushing a curl from her forehead. Me too, Bug. And that was the truth. Not because I didn't want a bigger family or easier days, but because I had finally stopped measuring our life against anyone else's. Our life wasn't perfect. It was patched together, held up by hope and late nights and deep love. But it was ours. Honest, flawed, and fiercely protected. We had chosen peace over permission, truth over appearances, and love over control. And in that, we were finally free. Thank you so much for listening to my story. Your support means everything. If this story touched you or made you think, please subscribe to our channel for more real, powerful stories.